Hello and welcome back to World of Warcraft. My name's Lumin and right now it's time for the very first Warlords of Draenor Gold Challenge Mode run. This one's on Auchindoun, and as I mentioned in the video that I uploaded before this discussing the challenge modes in general, just giving you guys a rundown of what to expect from these videos, this is not a full-on guide or anything like that. This is more just my thoughts and impressions on the dungeons that we're doing, and I also didn't go out and read things and watch things and prepare that hardcore for all of this. Before we get started, I will once again just mention that our team consists of myself, a protection paladin, our healer is a discipline priest, then we've got two hunters, one is beastmaster, one is marksmanship. The beastmaster has a battle res that we don't use all that often, and finally we've got an enhancement shaman. It's going to be a little bit crazy and all over the place, and it's going to look bad most of the time, but it's just still sort of an authentic experience that I think would be valuable for a whole lot of people. Now, as we start out here, obviously pop in the pre-pot. As I mentioned in the video before this, pre-pot as often as you possibly can, as long as it doesn't interrupt or overlap with your invisibility runs. But when you start off here, you've got a focus on every single pull. On this one, it's the Soulbinder. On the second pull, it's the Cleric, I think it's called, and on the last one it's a Void Mender. Basically, when you take out the big mob of the pack, then you can, in most situations at least, safely pull the next pack. You'll see my health dips down really low here, having a lot of faith in my lovely wife, our healer, but you gotta do that. Okay, you gotta take chances because you can't waste all your cooldowns on these first packs here, seeing that some of the most difficult packs in the whole instance are coming up right after this. So, once you focus down the main big one in each pack, then you can take the little ones, which are the Ritualists, the Hoplites, and the Zealots, on to the next pack, cleave them down, take them down as you run. Again, like Binding Shot, Capacitor Totem, that kind of thing would have been so useful here. We would have done this so easily if we had used the double capacitor that I spoke about in the video before this, but, you know, we didn't, and we still managed to do it, so, like, I'm happy with it. You can see the Mirror of the Blade Master trinkets going off around the packs here. Those actually gave us some issues, like they sort of bug your client out and they give you some massive FPS loss at certain points, but you know, the amount of damage they do, it's kind of worth it in the end. But once we take down the Spirit Tender, once you take down all the mobs on this arena here, then the boss jumps in, you all get stunned, it doesn't really matter, and you'll see that all our ranged, that's our hunters and our healer, all ran off to the side, off to the left, and there's a little spot that you can actually camp out there that's, I suppose, a little bit out of harm's way. You can still get hit by some of the boss mechanics there, but you won't have the problem with the glowy lightning bits on the ground. You won't have to run from anything when the shield gets thrown down and he does that blast of light. I'm not even sure what it's called. So it's a good spot to be. You can see they can attack from back there, they can heal from back there. You just have to be very careful as a tank, if you tank in this, to not run away too far. But I do suggest you do that. Like, it's definitely worth it, because it again makes the healer's job a whole lot easier if they can just stay out of the one or two random little orbs of light that spawn there. So, well worth doing. This boss is very easy because you actually pop your first heroism here. It's basically just DPS, 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 avoid stuff on the ground. When the Holy Shield gets thrown down, then you get behind it as he starts casting Consecrated Light, and that's it. The heroism that you use here, you can safely use that, and you can safely do it because you will have more than enough time to get to the last boss again and use it there. Now, moving into this passageway here, this is the Passage of Doom. The mobs leading up to the final pack here aren't that bad. The Arbiters stun a lot, but these are very kiteable in most situations. You'll see, I sort of just run. I just go, and I keep backing it up. I'm basically here, what I'm doing is I'm asking our team on TeamSpeak, is it okay, is it okay, do you guys have them, can we keep going, can we keep going? As soon as they say, yeah, it's cool, we can go, then I keep moving. And again, if you feel more comfortable, you can pull more here. We realized after a little while of doing these dungeons that our DPS was good. Okay, it wasn't amazing, it's nothing spectacular, especially starting out here, but it was good, and because of that, we could pull smaller packs, kill them quickly, and take less risks, if you know what I'm saying. So we also sort of killed bosses faster, and that made things a little easier on the trash. We didn't have to play as risky, but it's again the same situation. When you kill the dangerous ones and there are just the defenders left, then you can keep going. The defenders, they don't do very much. In this pack, it's the Soul Priest. Previous pack, it was the Arbiter. There was the Mage as well that was casting those little orbs of arcane energy. The Soulbinder or Soul Priest or whatever it is here, I think it's called the Soul Priest, yes. It casts a fear on the ground, you can see it right there, and that fears your players, so you got to just move out of that. This dungeon has a lot of that, where you just got to move out of stuff on the ground. We decided to kill everything before moving on, because we wanted to move into this last little bit, sort of in a good place, in good condition, I suppose, and I was trying to save all my cooldowns for this next pack, because it is the big one. I suppose in hindsight, I could have moved a little quicker there, and I think that if we had that extra stun, and like maybe a little bit more interrupted and stuff like that, we could have gone quicker through these, but I was perfectly happy with how quick we went through it and how, I suppose, easily we did it. Now with this pack, we wait for the healer to get mana, of course. Zoe's busy drinking right behind me. She has this Graku's mince pie or something from, I think, Christmas, Winter's Day event, that regenerates her mana really quickly. But this pack, let me just get back to talking about the actual pack. It's dangerous. It's really, really, really dangerous, and I, straight off the bat, used my Guardian of Ancient Kings. She put down Power Word Barrier immediately, like just as soon as she could, because the damage output from these mobs is insane, and it's really difficult to dodge everything, because they keep pulling you in, they keep slowing you and stuff like that. I think that the arcane energy that they put, these little clouds and stuff on the ground, that's one of the things that damages the most. Then the arcane bomb from that mage back there is also really, really deadly. But obviously, again, you sort of go the normal route, and you focused on the biggest, baddest dude first. We did that. It ended up being quite good. We survived. I used all my cooldowns. That's, you know, what I had to do. But this next boss doesn't really require much of anything. You know, you can just run in here, DPS, and she basically does nothing. I don't know. Like, a lot of the bosses in these challenge mode runs, they feel almost exactly the same as they do on, like, their normal or heroic or mythic counterparts. They just don't do that much. They don't hurt that much. They don't take that much damage to kill. But, again, I think it's sort of just good practice to anyway give it your all on every single boss. DPS as hard as you can. Use as many pots as you can. Just go crazy. Again, because you're trying to beat that gold timer. Now, we're doing okay here. The boss, you can interrupt the casts that she does. The Mind Spike, it does a decent amount of damage if it hits, and you can let your healer do a little bit more DPS. Depends on what healer you have. We have a Disciplined Priest, so, you know, she gets to smite a whole lot in between. So if you interrupt the Mind Spikes, that kind of helps. And when this phase starts, where the ads spawn, where she summons the ads, you just ignore them. Ignore them completely. Do not, like, actually spend any time DPSing them. Just max the DPS of the boss, because once the boss dies, the ads will die along with it. I made the mistake of not kiting the boss back into the trinket that was on the ground there. I think that might have cost us like 1 or 2 seconds. And here at the end, I decided, okay, well, we're just about there, so I'm going to push it a little bit. I nearly died. If I was out of that circle there for a little bit longer, I probably would have died. So as you complete this boss, you keep running. There's always this Infernal that drops down in the exact same place. You can see how Hunter even puts a trap down immediately. This Infernal is very easy. There's nothing too complex or crazy about him. He fixates on one person. He follows that person until he gets to him. He hits really, really hard. I don't think he can fixate on the tank or the healer. Maybe he can fixate on the healer. Maybe it depends if it's a melee or ranged healer. Doesn't really matter. But one thing you can do to make this quicker is not have him kited in that direction back towards the boss, rather kite him towards these guys, and you can actually start fighting the cackling pyromaniacs while you're still busy with the Infernal. If you've got enough interrupts and stuff, and this is one of the spots in this dungeon where Protection Paladins are just the best, like the best possible tank, or at least I feel like it. Maybe Death Knights are still better because they're always just better, but Holy Wrath stuns all these demons and stuff, so you can interrupt every single demon in a rather large radius with just one Holy Wrath, and it's got like a 10-second cooldown, so it's pretty awesome. I felt really good running this dungeon, and Shadow and Burial Grounds, and some of the others where there are demons and elementals and stuff like that that you can stun. This Felguard that I'm fighting, however, he hits pretty hard, and he does a conal stun, a forward-facing conal stun that you got to be careful of. I actually died to that coming up, I think, if I'm not mistaken. You'll see when I ran in there, I did actually use Holy Wrath, and after that, we didn't interrupt everything. Look at Luthira's health over there. I wanted to use Lay on Hands on him, that's actually why I selected him, but then I realized it was on cooldown. So Luthira dies here. We like shouting at him at this point, don't release, don't release, don't release, because if you release at this point, then you have to run all the way back. This was a little chaotic. Okay, I won't lie, I was trying to interrupt, and I wasn't getting my Avenger's Shield procs, which would help us interrupt. So, you know, it was made a little bit more difficult by that. If someone dies, don't panic. You know, just don't panic. We've still got 10 minutes left. There's only the one boss left, and then the final boss, there's not a lot of trash left. It's cool. So we just rebuffed. I don't think he had time to eat food and stuff here, but we were good to go. You know, just rezzed him and we were good to go. This room is super risky. I know that Death Knights are able to pull the entire room at the same time and then just cleave and AoE them down, but this is again one of those rooms where if we had the capacitor totem and we used bind and shot more effectively, we would have done better. I ended up dying here because I just didn't dodge the Fel Stomps, and I really should have. It's like one of the most basic mistakes you can make as a tank. Dodge the Colonel, stun, or knockback. It's unfortunate, but it didn't, again, kill our run. It didn't dash our chances of getting that gold. We were still fine, even if I did die. But, you know, it's still something you can avoid, and it's something you should avoid for the most part. Also, it's worth noting that with these Cackling Pyromaniacs, you can engage them as they're just starting a new cast up, and then you sort of have that extra time to do, like, whatever you need to do and to stun them and to interrupt them and stuff. I took way too many of the fire blasts to my face, and in this situation, like, why would I die? You know, they don't even hit that hard. I could have kited them. I could have done any number of things. I think that Holy Wrath was just off cooldown there as well, but somehow we didn't wipe here. Like, somehow we survived, and we still managed to, once again, like I said, get that gold. So, our hunters, they are pretty adept at kiting. Here, I'm panicking. Okay, I'm like, okay, wait, do I reset? Are we okay? What's going on? What's going on? I panicked. I was, as you can see, about to release Spirit there, and that would have been the biggest mistake ever again, just because of the insanely long run back. I do think Luthira released, he's our shaman, and for him it's cool. You know, he's got that little wolf form thing that shamans have, and he runs super fast, even indoors, so it's fine. It basically means that we don't have to res everyone in the party. A protection paladin, well, he'll take a long while to run back from anywhere to anywhere. So we get rezzed here, and we are basically patiently waiting for Luthira to get here, for everyone to get up, and then for ourselves to just buff up, eat up, prepare for the boss. We still had 7 minutes and 40 seconds on the timer, so we thought to ourselves, yeah, it's cool. Again, I think that this is mostly just possible because we have good DPS, we have lots of DPS. I suppose you could just say it's possible because we have 3 Mirrors of the Blade Master. Okay, that's why it's possible. I think that trinket alone on each of our DPS made the biggest possible difference. So this guy here, Azakel, the boss, we engaged him. We decided to use heroism here just because we wanted to try and push the boss before he does the, I think it's called Claws of Argus, where he summons the demon ads and stuff. It didn't end up happening, so it was actually a really bad heroism. I suppose our DPS overestimated their burst potential. As a tank, when he does Fel Lash on you, he knocks you back, and then you get a debuff on you where you take a massive amount of damage if he gets an attack off on you. So you basically just roll with it, run away, and once that debuff expires, then, well, you just keep tanking him. So when this happens, you can see where the ads are going to land, because it's sort of telegraphed by those spots on the floor, and it's always just a Fel Guard and then a bunch of Pyromaniacs. With hunters in your group, it's not too tough to properly crowd control these. They could have thrown freezing traps on them, stunned them, done whatever to them, and you should definitely do whatever you can to try and interrupt those Fel Blasts, because they do a ton of damage, especially if it's to DPS. Look at our healer, look at Luthira, that's pretty low. I decided to use Lay on Hands here because we still had something like 5 minutes left, and I would be able to use it one more time before the instance run was finished. So yeah, I popped it on Helene, on Zoe there, on the healer, just to make her job a little easier. Once the boss is done, there are these debuffs that can potentially be on your party members if you stood in the fire. You kind of have to be careful because you can die there. That happened a couple of times to us. And then there are these 3 mini-bosses here. Okay, there are these 3 little mini-bosses that you gotta make your way through before you get to the final boss. There's nothing too crazy or special about them. You can see we actually did a good thing here by crowd controlling the little imp. I think you can just as well pull the imp with the main dude here and just cleave him down or stun him or interrupt him or whatever, because you have enough of those, and we do have enough of those. It's not that big a deal, but we have hunters too. And if you kill Durag, the Dominator here, then the imp despawns. So I guess that is, at the end of the day, the better way of doing things. So you can see that our enemy count is kind of perfect at the moment, and in this dungeon there's no real variance. Like, there are no packs that you can pick and choose with, so you gotta kill what you gotta kill, and that's everything in the entire dungeon. With the others, you have a lot more freedom. Now, this guy here, Gulkosh and Shadoum, they are probably the most dangerous of these bosses, just because Shadoum there, he does a whirlwind that's really, really deadly. He also does that Wrath Cleave that Luthira stood in there, our shaman. I actually got hit by that quite a lot. I didn't have to, but one thing you got to be careful with is if you stun this guy or CC this guy too much, then you have diminishing returns on him, and then when the time comes to actually interrupt that whirlwind that he does, I'm talking about Shadoum now, then you can't. So you mustn't stun him until that point. When he does his first whirlwind, then you stun him. I was the one that was going to do it every time. You can see here, I took a little longer the second time, but still, I did it. And it didn't do too much damage to our melee users here. I can tell you right now that it's a great thing having mostly ranged. I would have preferred it if we had only ranged. Seriously, not because, you know, I don't want Luthira with this or an enhancement shaman, which is actually really, really good. It's just that ranged are always so much safer from mechanics and stuff like that. In challenge modes, man, let me just tell you, it's great. Like, if you try and do a challenge mode like I did once with a Retribution Paladin, a Windwalker Monk, and then like a Brewmaster Monk as a tank, it's quite crazy having all those melee there, and especially if you tank in it, then there's so much more to look out for. This guy here, he's the easiest by far. He does Rain of Fire, you can see it at the back there on our ranged. You just gotta run out of that, okay? And then you can pretty much interrupt all the other stuff that he casts if you want to. It doesn't do that much damage. I think that you can use reflective stuff here, like, is it Grounding Totem? And then the Death Knights have Anti-Magic Shell and stuff like that. But we got to the final boss. All our enemies, 48 out of 48 done, 3 minutes and 10 seconds to spare. The majority of our party did not have heroism here, except Moving somehow dodged the debuff. I'm not entirely sure how that happened, but Terran Gore, he's not so difficult. As a tank or a melee or, well, pretty much anything, you gotta interrupt the Rain of Fire, and you gotta interrupt the big Chaos Bolt type attack that he does. And as a ranged, and I want to just point out that I don't know all the ranged mechanics all that well, but as a ranged, you have to run away from the Fellborn Abyssal that needs to be kited or stunned or whatever. It again fixates on one person, and that person's just got to run. Much like on the other bosses, you don't want to waste DPS on an ad or something like that that can actually be kited. You can see back there Moving's busy kiting it, he got a binding shot on it, and it's okay, you know? Hunters can keep the concussive shots on them. I interrupted the Chaos Bolt there just in time, and he just keeps kiting while we keep DPS in the boss. When you get the boss down to about 10%, I think the instance ends. Then all you gotta do is stay alive for like a couple more seconds and you're done. The Rain of Fire and the Infernal and all the rest becomes a problem if the boss takes too long, and that's why you generally want to use heroism here, not on the previous boss. We took a chance on the previous boss, it didn't pay off, unfortunately, so it would have been a bit quicker if we had heroism here, quite a bit quicker, but it ended up working just fine. Anyway, you can see we kind of get caught in the Rain of Fire constantly here, because he starts casting it more frequently, but there you go, he's running off, the instance has officially ended. Now you just need to survive for like a moment or two longer, while he does his little RP thing here, he jumps off the side, and then you are done. That's it. That's Auchindoun Gold. Again, maybe not the most informative of guides or videos that I'm putting out here, but I just wanted to talk to you guys about it. I'm going to do the same thing on all the others. Okay, I'm just going to talk to you about how I went through it and how easy or difficult it was. We decided to start on this one first because most people told us it's pretty quick. You know, it's not that tough, and I mean pretty quick in that it won't take you too many tries to get it done, and that was true. We did this on our first night of doing it, and I think that we did another one in the same night, which is pretty great. So, yeah, there you go. And as someone just said there, Luthira said, I don't know, gold is gold. And there you go. That's exactly how I feel about most of the dungeons that we did. We did them really badly, but gold is gold. We got it done, so who really cares? But that's it. Check back here soon for the rest of them. Give it a like, share it, and don't leave too many nasty comments about how bad I am at tanking. Again, it's not meant to be a guide, it's sort of just me talking over us doing it for the very first time on Gold, and going through some of the experiences we had in these runs, some of the stuff we learned while doing them. Authentic experience. Again though, check back here soon for the next one, give this one a like, share it, and do all the other good stuff. Most importantly though, happy Auchindoun Gold. Happy that.